Hi Blue Lake campers, this is Dr. Katey Halbertl. I am on the horn faculty for camp for sessions 3 and 4. This would have been my third summer on faculty and I really am sad that we can't be together, but I'm very happy that Blue Lake is offering this online content. So I would like to do a video today talking about articulation, okay? And one of the things about articulation that we seem to overdo is actually the tongue, and I know that sounds really silly. So we're going to talk today about how we can play articulated passages on the horn and be really successful with sound and with speed. All right, so I'm going to share an exercise with you that I have my students do in their warm-ups. And it looks relatively simple, but you'd be amazed how this simple warm-up actually gets a lot of great results. So one of the big things that we need to have today, if we don't, is a metronome. And so I have a metronome on my phone, and I'm going to use it today. So if you don't have one, that's okay, because I'm just going to play mine so you can play along with it. But if you don't have one, you should get one, because there are definitely free apps that you can get, and they actually can also be on your computer. So we want to make sure that when we practice our articulation that we're doing it with the metronome, because part of articulation is being rhythmically accurate. All right, so I have my metronome set to quarter note equals 60, and we're going to do this relatively simple exercise, number 1, to start. So one of the first mistakes we make when we articulate is we use too much tongue and not enough of, anybody? Not enough air. So we want to make sure that our horn is constantly vibrating through our articulation. And one of the ways to ensure that is to make sure our articulation is light and out of the way. So when we articulate as horn players, we use da, D-A-H, in order to make sure that we have a nice rounded start to the note and an open-ended end of the word in order to make sure that we don't stop the sound. So it's just a nice attack. Da. We don't stop it with our tongue. We don't go dot. We don't add anything at the end. We want it to be very open-ended. So if we look at exercise number 1, we want to make sure that when we play it, and I'm going to turn on the metronome, that we avoid doing this. Because that's not what's on the page. We have nice full-length quarter notes with no indication that they should be separated other than they're going to be articulated. So I want you to imagine that those 4 C's are all connected through a line of air. So it's going to sound like this. And I really want you to think about, how would you sing this? Da, 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 da. Try it. So notice that your tongue does move in order to make the da, but otherwise it's out of the way and allows you to sing. You need to think about singing through your horn. So let's try playing number 1. Notice that I give you 4 beats of rest, and then we actually continue on into the second line. Okay, so here we go. So 1, 2, ready. Good. So if at any point during that exercise you heard me play longer than you, then you want to make sure that you assess, maybe I was putting space between these where there should not have been. We want to make sure that when we play through the horn that our default articulation is a very long and very beautiful and sonorous DAW articulation. So now let's apply this to a faster articulation exercise like number 2, which has eighth notes versus just quarter notes. And now you're going to say, oh, well now I definitely have to use lots of tongue. Ah, no you don't. You want to make sure that your tongue is still saying da, but that your airstream is still more important, okay? And I say that, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but let's try it. So here's the metronome, and I want you to think about this nice long articulation, but now we're just going to use the tongue a little bit more often. 1, 2, ready. If you had to take a breath. If anything, I wish you did, because it shows that you're using lots of air. So as we play with this idea of less tongue, it should feel easier. Have you ever had that time where you're playing and you're playing something all articulated and all of a sudden you feel like you can't breathe? It's because you've used your tongue to a point where it's stopped your air and air is literally stuck in your throat. So this idea of allowing the air through with this really light DAW articulation that allows air through the embouchure gets rid of that sensation. And now what I love about the rest of this exercise is that we just keep the metronome going, but the tongue actually gets faster with the rhythm. So now let's try number 3. 1, 2, ready. Good. It should feel easy. It should not feel like there's any tension, and you should feel like you're getting air out and it's not getting stuck. Let's try the very last one, number 4. 2, ready. Wonderful. Hopefully that all felt a little bit easier. And what's the great thing about this page is that you can actually go back and just speed up the metronome just a little bit, up to 63. And that doesn't sound like a big change, but when you get to those 16th notes, it definitely feels a little bit faster. So making sure that when you are working on your articulation, actually start thinking about less tongue and more air. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope that in your practice time this summer, you're spending a little bit more time on your articulation, and that you see some wonderful results and you feel like it's getting easier. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you all next summer.